It starts with a sensation of weightlessness, followed immediately by the crushing reality of gravity, except the gravity is wrong. It pulls at your stomach sideways, a nausea that settles deep in your bones. Elias Thunderborn didn't wake up in a bed, he woke up in a gift box to be precise, wrapped in a shimmering, holographic material that felt like silk but hummed with a low-voltage static charge. The last thing he remembered was the sterile smell of the Earth transport terminal, the taste of stale airport coffee, and the frantic sprint to gate 17, or was it 71? The digital display had flickered, a single pixel malfunctioning at the worst possible moment in his life. The lid of the box dissolved. It didn't open, it simply evaporated into a mist of glittering particles, and Elias was blinded by a light so violet it tasted like grape soda on the back of his tongue. He squinted, his hand instinctively flying up to shield his eyes, his other hand still clutching the crumpled remains of a terrifyingly expensive boarding pass. "Oh," a voice purred, vibrating through the floorboards and straight into his chest. "It's even more vibrant in person." Elias blinked the spots from his vision. As the purple haze cleared, he realized he wasn't looking at a baggage claim officer. He was looking at legs, long, violet legs that seemed to go on for miles, ending in feet with delicate, articulated toes that gripped the plush, living carpet like a bird of prey. His gaze traveled up, past a robe of spun silver that defied the laws of physics, barely clinging to curves that would have made a Renaissance painter drop his brush in despair, until he met the eyes. Electric blue, slitted pupils, and looking at him with the exact same expression a starving wolf looks at a particularly juicy steak. "Delivery confirmed," a mechanical voice chirped from somewhere inside his own ear. "Enjoy your purchase, Princess Selene. Item 283, the human male. Condition, mint." "Mint?" Elias croaked. His voice sounded rusty, small in the cavernous room that smelled of ozone and crushed flowers. "I'm not a breath mint. I'm Elias Thunderborn, and I think there's been a massive administrative error." The woman, the creature, the goddess, leaned down. Her hair was a cascade of silver braids that moved on their own, snake-like, examining the air around him. She poked his cheek with a finger that felt cool, like polished marble. "It speaks," she delighted, her voice a melodic trill. "The catalog said vocalization was a feature, but I assumed it just screamed. You know, like the last one." "The last one?" Elias scrambled backward, hitting the wall of the box which hadn't dissolved yet. What happened to the last one? "Oh, he stopped working, refused to eat the nutrient paste," she dismissed with a wave of her hand, a gesture that sent ripples of light through the air. "But you look robust. Stand up, pet. Let me see the articulation." "I am not a pet," Elias shouted, scrambling to his feet, indignantly dusting off his leather jacket. "I am a citizen of the Solar Federation. I have rights. I have a lawyer. Well, my cousin is in law school, but that counts." Selene giggled. It wasn't a human giggle. It was the sound of wind chimes in a storm. Look at its posture, the aggression, the adorable little furrow of the brow. "Vix, did you see? It thinks it's people." A shadow detached itself from the corner of the room. Vix, a servant composed entirely of shifting geometric shapes and subservience, bowed low. "An excellent acquisition, Your Highness. The rebel eyes alone are worth the expedited shipping cost." Elias looked around frantically. He was in a room carved from a single geode. The walls were jagged amethyst crystals that pulsed with a rhythmic light. Outside the massive windowless balcony, the sky was a bruised peach color, streaked with auroras that moved aggressively fast. Pink mountains undulated in the distance, literally undulating, breathing in and out like sleeping giants. "Where the hell am I?" "Aurexia 5, Selene answered, circling him. She walked with a predatory grace, her silver robe fluttering open to reveal flashes of violet skin that made Elias's mouth go dry despite his terror. "Okay," Elias put his hands up, palms out. "Aurexia 5. Great, lovely architecture. Listen, lady, princess, I was going to visit my grandmother in Ohio. I have a pie. It's in the overhead bin of a ship that is currently halfway to Earth. I need to go back." Selene stopped in front of him. She was tall, a good head taller than him, and the heat radiating off her was intoxicating. It smelled like rain on hot asphalt and exotic spices. She reached out, her hand hovering over his chest. Heart rate accelerated, she noted, her eyes dilating until the electric blue was just a thin ring around black pools. Pupils dilated, skin conductivity increasing. You aren't scared, Elias. You're fascinated. I'm terrified, Elias corrected, though his voice betrayed him. And you're violating my personal space. I own your personal space, she whispered, leaning in until her lips, plush and violet, were inches from his. I own this room, I own the air you're breathing, and as of 10 minutes ago, when the credit transfer cleared, I own you. The sheer audacity of it snapped Elias out of his trance. He was a Thunderborn. His grandmother commanded fleets. He wasn't going to be a purse dog for an alien socialite, no matter how distractingly beautiful she was. You can't own a person, Elias said, locking eyes with her. Slavery is illegal in this quadrant. Intergalactic Law, Section 4, Paragraph 2. Selene pulled back, blinking in genuine confusion. Slavery? Don't be dramatic. You're domestic stock. Exotic 283, bred for companionship and amusement. She tapped a crystal tablet floating nearby. See? It says right here. High emotional intelligence, moderate problem-solving skills, requires frequent grooming. Sounds like a pet to me. I was born in a hospital in Chicago, Elias yelled. I have a degree in structural engineering. I pay taxes. Taxes? Selene tilted her head. Is that a trick? Can you do it for me? It's not a trick, it's a… Elias groaned, rubbing his temples. I need a phone, a communicator, anything. No external comms, Vix interrupted, his geometric body sharpening into jagged points. Protocol 7. Imports are to be isolated for bonding. Bonding? Elias repeated flatly. Is that what we're calling kidnapping these days? You're feisty, Selene grinned, a sharp, dangerous expression. I like feisty. The obedient ones are so boring. Come, Elias, it's time for your intake evaluation. My what? Before he could protest, the floor beneath him liquefied. Elias didn't fall, he slid, the crystal turning into a frictionless chute that deposited him, tumbling and cursing, into a lower chamber that looked disturbingly like a vet's office designed by Apple. White, sleek, and terrifyingly sterile. Standing there was a creature that looked like a praying mantis wearing a lab coat. Inspector Vorak, Selene announced, floating down gracefully behind Elias. This is the new acquisition. He claims to be a tax-paying engineer from Chicago. Vorak clicked his mandibles, waving a scanner over Elias that emitted a high-pitched whine. Delusions of grandeur are common in the Earth breeds. It's a coping mechanism for their limited cognitive processing. Limited? Elias swatted the scanner away. I can solve differential equations. I can build a bridge. I can recite the entire script of The Empire Strikes Back from memory. Mimicry, Vorak dismissed, jotting something down on a holographic clipboard. Parrot-like behavior. Note, subject displays advanced vocal mimicry. Recommended action, shock collar if noise levels exceed 50 decibels. Shock collar? Elias backed up until his back hit a cold glass wall. Now, wait a minute. If you put a collar on me, I will bite you. And humans have a lot of bacteria in their mouths. It'll get infected. You'll lose the mandible. Selene laughed again, that wind chime sound echoing in the sterile room. Oh, Vorak, don't damage him. He's spirited. I think I'll keep the vocalizations. It adds character. As you wish, Highness, Vorak grumbled. But we need to verify the biological classification. There have been rumors about Earth imports. Rumors? Selene asked, her playfulness vanishing instantly. Whispers that the suppliers are cutting corners, Vorak said, leaning in, his compound eyes rotating. That they're not breeding these things in labs, that they're plucking them wild, sentient populations? Ridiculous, scoffed, though her eyes darted to Elias with a flicker of uncertainty. If he were sentient, he wouldn't be in a catalog for 5,000 credits, he'd be a diplomat. I am sentient, I shouted. I think, therefore I am. Descartes, philosophy. I experience existential dread. Look at me, I'm having a panic attack right now. Is that not proof of higher brain function? Vorak paused, the scanner hovering over Elias's chest. His cortisol levels are spiking, and the neural patterns, they are chaotic, but dense, complex. See? Elias pleaded, looking at Selene. I'm real. I'm a person. Please, just let me call home. For a moment, just a moment, Selene looked at him not as a possession, but as a being. The silence stretched, heavy and thick.
Then the doors hissed open. "Sister," a voice boomed. In strode Lyra, Selene's sister, a darker, sharper version of the princess. She was followed by a retinue of guards and a floating camera drone. Ugh, it's pale. And look at those ears. Are they supposed to be that round? "He is perfect," snapped, stepping between Lyra and Elias. It was a possessive move, instinctual. "He's a contagion," Lyra countered. "Mother is furious. You bought an Earth import during the embargo? If the Imperial Council finds out, they'll sanction the entire bloodline." "Let them," Selene challenged. "I'm tired of the rules, Lyra. Tired of the boredom." "You're playing with fire," Lyra warned, leaning close. "If that thing steps one toe out of line, if it shows one sign of aggression or, God forbid, intelligence, Inspector Vorak is legally obligated to incinerate it." Elias swallowed hard. Incinerate? That was a very final sort of word. "He won't," Selene promised, her voice icy.
"He's just a pet, a dumb, pretty animal. Isn't that right, Elias?" She turned to him, her eyes pleading silently. "Play along," they said, "or die." Elias looked at the incinerator nozzle attached to Vorak's belt. He looked at Lyra's cruel smile. He looked at Selene. "Woof," Elias said, deadpan. Lyra rolled her eyes. "Pathetic. Come, Vorak, we have actual work to do." As they left, the tension drained from the room, leaving Elias shaking. Selene turned to him, and for the first time, she didn't look like a predator. She looked scared. "You're not safe here," she whispered. "No kidding," Elias snapped. "You bought me. You created the unsafe environment." "I didn't know," she hissed back. "I thought you were a biological construct, a robot made of meat. I didn't know you had souls, or whatever it is that makes you so annoying." "It's called personality," Elias muttered. "So what now? You incinerate me to save face?" "No," Selene said, stepping closer. The air around them began to hum again. "Now we have to prove you're too valuable to destroy. We have to make you essential." "Essential how?" "By bonding," Selene said, her voice dropping an octave. "Officially. If we initiate a biosync, the law states you cannot be separated from me without causing physical harm to the owner. They can't kill you if your death would hurt a royal." "Biosync," Elias repeated suspiciously. "That sounds intimate." "It is," Selene admitted, a violet flush creeping up her neck. "It requires contact, high-level emotional and physical resonance." "You mean," Elias gestured vaguely. "I mean I have to make you fall in love with me, Elias," Selene said, her electric eyes locking onto his. "And I have to fall in love with you, and we have to do it before the council meeting in 3 days." Elias stared at her. 3 days to fall in love? That's a rom-com timeline. That's impossible. "I specialize in impossible," Selene said, repeating the line he would later learn was her motto. "And considering the alternative is being turned into a pile of ash, I suggest you start charming me, Earthling." The next 48 hours were a blur of the strangest, most terrifying courtship in galactic history. It started with the food. Selene had the chefs prepare Earth cuisine, which resulted in a plate of blue noodles that screamed when you bit them, and a beverage that tasted like liquid Skittles. Elias ate it, maintaining eye contact, trying to look grateful while suppressing the urge to gag. "Is it to your liking?" Selene asked, watching him eat with an intensity that was unnerving. "It's unique," Elias managed. "The texture is very aggressive." "Good," she smiled. "Aggression is a sign of vitality." Then came the walks. Selene paraded him through the royal gardens, a place of crystalline trees and flowers that sang operatic arias when you brushed past them. He had to wear a collar, a thin band of diamond light, which was humiliating, but Selene kept her hand on his shoulder the entire time,
her touch burning through his jacket. "Stop walking like a soldier," she whispered as they passed a group of gaping nobles. "Walk like you belong to me, loose, relaxed." "I'm walking like a guy who's afraid of getting vaporized," Elias hissed through his teeth. "Relax," she murmured, her fingers tightening on his shoulder. "I won't let them touch you." And the strange thing was, he believed her. Beneath the arrogance and the entitlement, there was a fierceness to Selene. She shouted down a duke who tried to poke Elias with a cane. She threatened to exile a guard who looked at him sideways. She was protecting him. And she was beautiful. God, she was beautiful. It happened on the second night. They were on the balcony, watching the twin moons rise. The air was thick with the scent of night-blooming nebula flowers. "You really miss it?" Selene asked softly. "Earth?" "Yeah," Elias said, leaning on the railing. "It's messy and loud and the politics are stupid, but it's home. The sky is blue, not whatever this is. And the pizza. You can't replicate pizza." "Tell me about pizza," she commanded, sitting on the hovering railing, her legs dangling over the abyss. So he did. He talked about deep dish versus thin crust. He talked about the time he dropped a slice on his shirt on a first date. He talked about his life, his small, insignificant, wonderful human life. And Selene listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't check her crystal tablet. She just watched him, her alien eyes soft and wide. "You have so much passion for such trivial things," she marveled. "It's intoxicating." "It's not trivial to me," Elias said. He looked at her, really looked at her. "Why did you buy me, Selene? Really?" Selene looked away at the pulsating mountains. "Because I'm lonely," she whispered. The confession hung in the air, heavy and raw. "I have servants, I have subjects, I have a sister who wants my title, but I have no one who sees me. To them, I am just the princess, the bloodline, the asset." She turned back to him. "When I saw your picture in the catalog, you looked so angry, so defiant. You looked like you refused to be just a number. I wanted that fire close to me. I thought maybe it would warm me up." Elias felt his chest tighten. He reached out, hesitating, then placed his hand over hers on the railing. Her skin was cool, but it flared with heat the moment he touched her. "You're not cold, Selene," he said softly. She looked down at their hands. "This is dangerous, Elias. Touching. It accelerates the sink." "Let it," he said. And he meant it. She looked up, her eyes searching his. Then, slowly, she leaned in. It wasn't the predatory advance of the bedroom. It was tentative, uncertain. When their lips met, it wasn't like kissing a human. It was like kissing a lightning bolt. A shockwave went through Elias, starting from his mouth and blowing out the ends of his fingers and toes. The world turned pink. Literally, a sphere of rose-colored light erupted from them, expanding outward, illuminating the entire balcony. His mind was suddenly flooded with her. Not words, but feelings. Her crushing loneliness, her boredom, her fear, her desire. And he knew she could feel him too. His confusion, his awe, his growing attraction. They broke apart, gasping, chests heaving. The pink light lingered in the air, drifting like glitter. "Oh," Selene whispered, touching her lips. "Oh, my." "Yeah," Elias breathed, steadying himself against the railing. "That was certainly a biosync." "No," she shook her head, her eyes wide with terror and wonder. "That wasn't just a sync, Elias. That was a soul bind. It's legendary. It hasn't happened in the royal line for 1,000 years." Suddenly, the doors burst open. Lyra stood there, flanked by Vorak and a squad of armed guards. "I knew it!" Lyra shrieked, pointing at the fading pink light. contamination, corruption. She's bonded with the livestock. Run, Selene shouted, shoving Elias toward the side exit. Not without you, Elias grabbed her hand. Secure the exotic, Vorak ordered.
Guards lunged. Elias, fueled by adrenaline and the lingering energy of the soulbind, moved faster than he ever had in his life. He ducked a crystalline spear, shoulder-checked a guard who felt like he was made of obsidian, and yanked Selene down a maintenance chute. They slid for seconds that felt like hours, landing in the subterranean garden maintenance tunnels. We have to get to the spaceport, Elias panted, pulling Selene up. Her silk robes were torn, her silver braids messy. She looked magnificent. The spaceport is locked down, Selene cried. Lyra will have blocked the perimeter. We're trapped. Not trapped, Elias said, his engineer brain finally clicking into gear. We're in the infrastructure. Look at these pipes. This is a pneumatic waste disposal system. It runs directly to the recycling plant outside the city limits. You want us to crawl through garbage? Selene looked horrified. If you want to live to make out with me again, yes, Elias grinned. Selene looked at the dark tunnel, then at him. She grinned back, a sharp, wild smile. Lead the way, monkey boy. They crawled. They ran. They dodged automated cleaning drones that tried to scrub them out of existence. And the whole time, the connection between them hummed. He knew when she was stumbling before she fell. She knew when he was getting tired before he slowed down. They moved as one organism. They emerged hours later at the edge of the dazzling pink desert, dirty, bruised, and alive. But waiting for them was a blockade. Lyra stood atop a floating tank, her silhouette framed by the rising suns. End of the line, sister. Vorak, prepare the neutralization cannon. Lyra, please, Selene stepped in front of Elias. He's sentient. We soulbound. If you kill him, you kill a part of me. A sacrifice I am willing to make for the purity of the throne, Lyra sneered. Vorak leveled the massive cannon. The barrel glowed with a blinding white light. Elias grabbed Selene, turning his back to the weapon to shield her, knowing it was useless, knowing this was it. I love you, he whispered. Sorry about the garbage chute. I love you, she sobbed into his chest. Sorry about the kidnapping. The cannon fired. A beam of pure destruction tore through the air. And then, it stopped. Not the beam. The beam hit something, a shimmering golden shield that had materialized out of thin air inches from Elias's back. The energy dispersed harmlessly into the sky. Silence fell over the desert. A shadow fell over Lyra's tank, a massive shadow. Everyone looked up. Hovering silently above them was a dreadnought-class starship. Not sleek and purple like the Erexian ships. This was blocky, gray, and utilitarian. It looked like a flying brick with guns. On the side of the ship, painted in peeling white letters, were the words, USS Discipline. A loudspeaker crackled to life, booming with a voice that sounded like gravel in a blender. This is General Vivian Thunderborn of the United Earth Alliance. You are currently firing on my grandson. I suggest you cease fire immediately, or I will rain down so much hellfire upon this pink rock that your grandchildren will be born with tinnitus. Elias's jaw dropped. Grandma? A teleportation beam whined, and 3 figures materialized. In the center stood a woman who was 4'11", wearing a floral tactical vest and wielding a plasma rifle that was bigger than she was. Hi, sweetie, Vivian Thunderborn said, kicking a stunned guard in the shin. I brought the pie. Grandma! Elias ran to her, but she held up a hand. Hug later, diplomacy now. She turned to Lyra, who was trembling atop her tank. Listen here, you grape-flavored tyrant. You kidnapped a federal citizen. That's an act of war. Now, normally, I'd glass this desert just to make a point, but Elias seems fond of the girl. Vivian looked at Selene, who was covered in sludge, shivering and clutching Elias's arm like a lifeline. The old general's eyes softened. She shielded him, Vivian noted. I saw it on the scans.
And she's standing between him and a tank. She's my soulmate, Grandma, Elias said, squeezing Selene's hand. Vivian sighed, slinging the plasma rifle over her shoulder. Well, that complicates the paperwork. All right, here's the deal. She pointed a finger at Lyra. You surrender, right now. Or I let the Marines loose, and they haven't had shore leave in 6 months. They're very cranky. Lyra looked at the massive ship. She looked at the crazy old human woman. She looked at Vorak, who had already dropped his weapon and was filling out a surrender form. I surrender, Lyra whispered. Epilogue. 3 months later. The intergalactic treaty between Earth and Erexia 5 was signed in record time, mostly because General Thunderborn threatened to recount her gallstone surgery stories if the delegates didn't hurry up. Elias stood on the balcony of the Imperial bedroom, now his bedroom too. The view was the same, pink mountains, green auroras. But the room was different. There was a flat-screen TV mounting on a crystal stalagmite and a half-eaten pizza box, synthetic but close enough, on the table. Selene locked in, wearing an oversized Chicago Bulls hoodie that went down to her knees. She looked ridiculous and perfect. The council approved the new trade agreement, she said, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. And they've officially categorized humans as high-class sentients. You're no longer livestock, darling. Moved up in the world, Elias laughed, leaning back into her warmth. So does this mean I can quit my job as royal pet? Absolutely not, Selene purred, biting his ear gently. You signed a lifetime contract. Read the fine print of the marriage license. I thought that was a receipt for the catering. That's what we tell the public, she grinned, spinning him around. Her electric blue eyes were soft, filled with the deep, humming connection that never faded. You know, my mother is terrified of your grandmother. Everyone is terrified of my grandmother, Elias said. She's teaching the Royal Guard how to play poker. They're going to be broke by Tuesday. Selene laughed, pulling him down onto the hovering bed. Let them be broke. We have everything we need right here. Elias kissed her, and the room glowed pink again, a soft, warm heartbeat of light. He had missed his flight, lost his luggage, and nearly been incinerated by a space insect. But looking at the alien princess in his hoodie, he knew one thing for sure. He had definitely landed at the right date.